I think it's good for everybody, right? Like the drama is good for everybody. It's super frustrating that the one car cost the five car like three races. Like that's incredibly frustrating for Hendrick Motorsports and Kyle and Cliff and all those guys. But at the same time, as an industry, it's good to have that drama and good to have those things being talked about. And yeah, it's crazy. Ross hasn't won a race in a really long time, and he's only won what, two races in his career. And he's the most talked about guy every single week.
All right, Charlie Marlowe here, joined by Alex Bowman. Alex, because this is the Kenny Wallace YouTube channel, we got to start there. And he actually gave me some questions for you as well. Some dirt on you, pun intended there. So let's go back to dirt racing first of all. Now, I know Kenny's a little older than you. Have you guys ever dirt raced against each other back in the day?
I don't think we've dirt raced against each other. Definitely ran some Xfinity races against each other, but nothing on dirt.
So coming up as a dirt open wheel midget racer with a lot of success, kind of tell us about the journey from that to climbing the ranks here in the NASCAR Cup Series.
Yeah, it was tough for sure. Like anything in motorsports, right? It's all everybody just asks about how much money you have or what sponsor you have or whatever. So I didn't have a big check behind me or anything like that, and was fortunate to, kind of try to do more with less for the most part. Like drove for some really low budget teams and small teams, and was able to have a little bit more success than we probably should have at times, and kind of opened the door to be able to fill in for Dale when Dale got hurt, and then I've been at Hendrick Motorsports ever since. So ran ARCA and then the E Series, then kind of Xfinity and straight to Cup. So it was pretty quick how I kind of ran through the different series, which was never really the goal. You always want to stay and get a good ride and win championships in what you're in. But for me, it was taking the next available thing just because it was that or sit on the couch. So I went cup racing really, really quickly, but got to learn a lot with nobody watching pretty much with the team I was driving for. And yeah, it's been a heck of a ride.
So did you also have a wreck earlier on in your career that you had to overcome?
Yeah, when I was 16, I wrecked a midget pretty bad. Broke a couple ribs and my collarbones, and spent some time in ICU, which wasn't much fun. So yeah, that I sat out for a couple months, but I don't remember that day. So it's kind of like is what it is, right? You don't. It's not something that bothers me at all moving forward after that. So yeah, I've had my fair share of injuries in race cars, especially here lately, but that's part of the job sometimes.
Yeah, so tell us about this most recent injury and the recovery. Obviously, good news here. You're coming back for the Coke 600. What was this recovery like the last month or so?
Yeah, really not a lot that I could do, right? So I broke my back in a sprint car about a month ago. It was on my 30th birthday. So I knew my back was going to hurt in my 30s. I just didn't know it would be quite like that. So it's been interesting. Obviously, been able to get back in the gym kind of last week and into this week. Was able to test at North Wilkesboro on Tuesday, which was really good. But yeah, I mean, it's not fun. It's definitely still a little bit painful. The good news is driving a race car is not painful. So, coming back to the 600 is a rough one to pick, but hopefully we can make the most of it and kind of pick up where we left off.
So tell us, what's it like to run the 600, not just for your first race back, but I'm guessing it's got to be the most grueling of a cup race. So compare it to another, I don't want to say average race, but I mean, do you feel that in your body and the wear and tear, maybe mentally after a Coke 600 differently than some of these other cup races?
Yeah, it's definitely different. I don't feel like Charlotte is the most physically demanding racetrack that we go to. Like, I think the most physical race we have all year are either the road courses or like Dover is pretty tough. Um, the 600 is just so long, like the dehydration level that you get to, and just trying to have enough calories to burn, honestly. And it's typically really, really hot in Charlotte in May. fortunately for me, who's been sitting on the couch for a month, like it's like low 70s this weekend. So thankful for that because I was a bit worried about the heat. But yeah, I mean, it's just a really long race. Like, I mean, we're talking 5.5 hours strapped in a race car that's 140 degrees inside. So just trying to be mentally sharp at the end of that is tough. And yeah, I enjoy the 600. I don't dread it. I know some people dread going to that race, and for me, like I enjoy it. But definitely after doing nothing for a month, it's going to be tough.
And if we can skip ahead to the race following that, I'm here in St. Louis. So St. Louis, home of Kenny Wallace. He was a big part of last year's race, will be again coming up this year. So it's a newer track, obviously, for the Cup Series, but guys have raced Xfinity or trucks back in the day. So what was that race like for you last year, and just the atmosphere and everything around the Enjoy Illinois 300?
Yeah, it was super cool. I just feel like that event was run really well. It was promoted really well. It's a racetrack that exploits all my weaknesses, right? Like I feel like it's one of my weaker racetracks, but it was a great event. Like the fan atmosphere was awesome. Everything that went on outside of the race cars on the racetrack was really cool. Down to even getting out of there and dealing with the traffic went really well. So cool to see how well it went. Really happy for those guys. There's a lot of really great people kind of behind bringing that racetrack back. So was cool to be a part of it, and hopefully the on-track stuff goes a little better for us this year. But yeah, it's a great race and a great event, and I think St. Louis race fans are awesome.
So Alex, you said that we still call it Gateway, but Worldwide Technology Raceway. Why do you think that's a track that exploits your weaknesses? What about that track is just kind of maybe finicky for you?
Yeah, I would say the flat places I tend to struggle at. Martinsville's really the only really flat track that I feel like I've got a good grasp of. So trying to get better there as quickly as possible, obviously. But yeah, the Gateway, Loudon, Phoenix, they're not the best to me. But yeah, trying to figure it out. Obviously, last year was my first time there, so it didn't go terrible, but it could have been a whole lot better. So we'll keep working at it and hopefully be better this time around.
Yeah, do you like the newer tracks or different tracks? What NASCAR is obviously trying to do with the schedule the last couple of years with the Clash. You got St. Louis. I know you were out for North Wilkesboro, but what you tested, your teammate Kyle ran away with that thing. But it seems like from an atmosphere standpoint, everybody loved the whole week. So it seems like NASCAR is trying to do some throwbacks. There's talk of Rockingham, and it seems like the fans are really into that. How about the drivers?
Yeah, for sure. I'm all into going to different racetracks. We've gone to the same racetracks for forever. So switching it up, I think, is always good and exciting. I do feel like there are some great places that we don't go to anymore. I'm a bit selfish. Like I hate not going to Chicago anymore. That was a great racetrack for us. And obviously the street course will be really exciting too. So yeah, I mean, I think there's so many great places that we can go. The throwback places are really cool. Wilkesboro was, from everything I saw, the atmosphere there was incredible. So just exciting to see that much fan engagement and see how excited the fans get over that stuff is really cool. And yeah, just going to unique places. Like I feel like we've gone to a lot of the same places for so long that changing it up is never bad.
And as you know, I'm sure you've been asked about it already, but yourself and Chase kind of part of this debate about drivers and what they should or shouldn't do away from the NASCAR Cup Series, and different injuries. Obviously, you were racing and Chase is snowboarding, but it's become a big topic in the NASCAR world. So what do you think about that? I've heard you talk about it in the past year, this year. Has it changed at all for you since your more recent injury?
Yeah, I think it's different for everybody, right? Like I broke my back in a sprint car a month ago, and I still haven't had anybody tell me that I can't go back and race a sprint car. Am I gonna get in a sprint car next week? Probably not. Like I'm in a position for me that like I've missed 9 races now in the last year, and one injury happened in a cup car and the other didn't. But at the same time, like for me and my race team, like I need to do everything I can to not let that happen again. And it's happened twice within not a long time of each other. So just trying to avoid that. But, I think it should be up to the drivers. Like, I feel like for me, racing a sprint car makes me better. I enjoy it a lot. I feel like it was a really fun learning experience, and I will definitely get back to that at some point. I don't know when it'll be, but I'm not going to quit by any means. So, yeah, I think there's pluses and minuses to it. Obviously, that stuff is dangerous, but Chase was snowboarding. Like, it's completely different. There's so many different ways to get hurt, right? Like, anything can happen. And I think for me, it's a little tough. Like, a guy that's 6'1" in a sprint car is a different scenario than Kyle Larson in a sprint car, as far as where the seat has to end up, and how easy it is for the rear end to kind of get into the bottom of the seat and kind of cause an injury like mine. So, yeah, I think I love that stuff. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about it. I'll do whatever they tell me to, under any situation. Like, I love driving for Hendrick Motorsports, but for me, like, the decision that I've made to not jump right back into the sprint car as quickly as I'm jumping back into the cup car, that's my decision, and I'm doing that for my own reasons.
And how about last year, obviously going through the concussion and NASCAR trying to make the car safer and softer? Was there a dialogue? It seems like, I mean, you tell me, is it better this year? We had Kevin Harvick on, and he said the dialogue between drivers and NASCAR has never been better in his, 20, 25-year career. So are they working with you guys to make this thing safer?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're definitely talking more than we ever have, right? Like, we got in a situation with that car that was unacceptable. And unfortunately, it took Kurt and I getting injured because of that race car to make change happen. But, things are changing, and they are working on it. And, it's never intentional, right? It just, that car was really, really stiff. And you look at rear impacts with the old car, and there were never any rear impact injuries. And, with that car to have rear impact injuries right off the bat that quickly, I think it raised a lot of red flags. And they're going to continue to try to make it safer. What happened to Kyle at Talladega was super scary. And I think they've addressed that now. And, it's a learning process. We had a lot of data on that old race car, and the design of that car hadn't changed in so long. Obviously, to completely change it in every way is going to take some revisions here and there. And I think NASCAR's done a great job of working on that.
And so while you were gone from the car the last month or so, a lot was going on, not just on the track, but off the track. And Kenny and I always joke about the fact that, I mean, for a month there, Ross Chastain was kind of the gift that keeps on giving, not necessarily for Hendrick, but for publicity for NASCAR. You had the fight versus Noah Gragson. He was wrecking some guys. Obviously, you don't want anybody to be hurt, but there was the race. I know you were tweeting about it, probably watching. So we enjoyed that. How do you think, not just the situation of Ross and Hendrick, I know they talked on the phone, but some of this stuff I feel like is good for business. And as a media person, that's how I feel. Obviously, you don't want anybody to be hurt, but I mean, when people are talking about the fights and the feuds, it seems like more eyeballs are watching you guys race.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's good for everybody, right? Like, the drama is good for everybody. It's super frustrating that the one car cost the 5 car like 3 races. Like, that's incredibly frustrating for Hendrick Motorsports and Kyle and Cliff and all those guys. But at the same time, as an industry, it's good to have that drama and good to have those things being talked about. And yeah, it's crazy. Ross hasn't won a race in a really long time, and he's only won 2 races in his career. And he's the most talked about guy every single week. So it's definitely interesting. And yeah, I don't know. I'm glad to fly under the radar a little bit. I've had some people say some mean things, but I've just put them on T-shirts and went with it. So yeah, I mean, I think that stuff is good. Good for everybody. You got to have those rivalries and get people talking. NASCAR fans are super passionate. So yeah, it's been fun to watch. I think, Twitter was fun for me for a little bit. I think the problem is, me not in the race car, some day chasers and Twitter, it got feisty there for a little bit. But glad I didn't tweet anything that got me in trouble. And yeah, I'm glad to not have my Sundays be so free for the foreseeable future.
And do you feel like you guys are going to be able to pick up right where you left off? I know with the injury, I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of transition, but and get back to running up front and hopefully winning some races.
Yeah, I hope so. It's hard to say until we go do it, and I do think there's going to be some discomfort and pain, especially in the 600. But yeah, we were really fast. I think not being in a race car for a month is never a good thing, and puts me behind a little bit, especially when you're racing with guys that have raced as much as they have since I've been out. But yeah, just hopefully we're fast at Charlotte and can kind of start getting me back in the swing of things, and got a long race to try to get back in the groove of it.
So I did ask the viewers of the Kenny Wallace YouTube channel for some questions. You already answered a couple of them, but it was Van Epps Motorsports asked, "Are you going to run the Slinger Nationals this year?" I'm not gonna lie, I don't even know what that is. So are you going to run it this year or next year or ever?
So I believe that's a super late model race. And Slinger looks like one of the coolest racetracks I've ever seen in my life. I've never been there. I don't have any plans to run it. I've never raced a super late model. I would love to. Unfortunately, my people don't call me to drive that stuff like they call Kyle Larson and some of those other guys. But I would love to at some point. It'd be super fun. Got no experience at it, but it would be really cool.
So I don't want to keep you too long. Final question, because you mentioned Kyle Larson again, and he's your teammate. You guys are all super talented. Does it ever just make you just think how crazy it is? It seems like this dude can get in anything, whether it's not even NASCAR. I mean, truck, Xfinity, Cup, but it seems like any type of car and win. I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling sometimes.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like he is so talented, but he also works really hard. I think that is a little bit like people don't give him enough credit for that. It's not like he's just showing up and going fast. Like he studies really hard. He works hard in the gym. Like he does work really hard. So yeah, it's been really fun being teammates with him and getting to watch that. Really good friends with Kyle, and he definitely influenced me on wanting to run a wing sprint car as much as I did. But I think for me, it makes the 3 or 4 times he's run second to me a little bit more meaningful that he's so good. And really my first Cup win, having to go head to head with him up against the fence at Chicago was a lot of fun. He passed me with like 5 to go, and then we got him back. So it makes those wins way more special than they would be if I just dominated the whole thing. So appreciative of that, and yeah, it's been really fun being teammates with him.
Awesome. Well, Alex, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. Glad you're back, and good luck at the Coke 600, and then the following weekend here in St. Louis for the Enjoy Illinois 300. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.